Hello, and welcome to Michael Chekhov Masters Talk about the creative process. This is episode number 6, and on the creative process, and today's topic is the practical application of the ideas we've discussed in the past several gatherings and apply it to an actual short film script or a short audition piece from a film script. And we have posted in the chat the script both as a PDF, as a page file, and also we've pasted the direct text right into the chat. So what we're going to do is we're going to review this, and before I launch into that, and I am Lisa Dalton. I am president of the National Michael Chekhov Association in the United States, and my co-host who will join us later is Joerg Andrees. He is from the Michael Chekhov International Academy in Germany and Russia. And so we're very excited to bring these ideas to you today. And our idea, based on your requests, was to actually go through a script and speak of and work with it. So if you've been watching, you know that Joerg and I have slightly different approaches. I'm going to review a little bit of what my approach is, and then we're going to look at this script together. There is a male and a female part to this script. This script is particularly controversial at this point in time because it deals with racism. Our work today has nothing to do with the socio-political or spiritual situation of racism beyond that of the artist, in as much as if you were actually auditioning for this role, you would not go in and discuss and debate the political situation. There are in all storytelling forces of good and evil. And because the actor is called upon to render both forces of good and evil, we have a strong representation of these in this story. And you may be called upon to interact in an evil situation. You may be called upon to play a character who has who you personally feel is an evil character, a bad guy, a villain. In our archetypes, we have a villain and we have a hero, and or you may see them differently. But we're inviting you to fall in love with any particular type of character that you get to play, and to find the humanity in this. And that's our job as artists. It is our job to show good and evil, and it is our job to play them with a full sense of love and commitment and a feeling of beauty. So this script is chosen to give you the additional challenge of bringing that aspect into your work. And not all scripts, of course, will call upon that for you, but this one certainly does. And I'm a little bit, I have a companion, is my co-host today. His name is Tibby. So you may hear him making a little bit of noise in the background. Thank you, Tibby. So to begin with, we want to review the creative process, the 4 basic stages of the basic creative process, very clearly outlined in your books. And the first stage is that stage of falling in love. It's the stage when these spontaneous images arise when you review the material, and your artistic nature, it becomes excited to grow and develop and play with this process. And then the second stage is that preparation stage. Is the stage of active imagination, where we call in our creative individuality to play with the images found in the material and ourselves to be permeated by them. again, we have our first stage, which is the stage of falling in love, and it happens with the reading, the multiple readings of this text. And we have this stage of imagination where we are playing with the images that we can extract or breathe in from this text. And then we go into the practical application or the incorporation phase where we get up on our feet and we practice the process. And then the third phase is inspiration, and that's when we actually share this with an audience. So in the audition process, our audience are the people who are seeing our audition, and whether that's a live audition or whether that is a videotaped audition, there is an audience, and that sharing is that fourth stage. And with that, in my approach and Joerg, both of us share, of course, that the first stage is that stage of reading the script for the first time. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to share my screen. On Facebook, there is a gray page for you to see the posts and things like that, invitations on the International Michael Chekhov Association Facebook page. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Joerg Andrees.
Thank you, Lisa Dalton. Here we are. I hope you are in a good situation and you feel positive even in this Monday lunchtime or afternoon or morning, wherever you are.
So we were just reviewing that in the chat. We have the contact for your website, my website, and for the International Michael Chekhov Association Facebook page, where everyone's invited to become a member. I am going to introduce you all to Gail Cronauer, who is with us now. I'm going to let her say wave hi. Gail has a supporting role in a new Amazon original movie called The Vast of Night, and we're going to interview her in particular about how she has been using the Chekhov work for her role. So we're very excited about that. Yes, thank you, Maria. Okay, so I have, Joerg, just to get you up to speed, I have shared and invited everyone to leave politics out of this text. I have posted both a Pages doc, a PDF, and also I have posted the text itself into the chat. And we were at the stage where we were inviting everyone to read this script, and I'm going to screen share. So whatever way you want to begin reading the script, you may do that now. So hopefully you can read it in one place or another, continue working with it. If you have anything to jot down on, please feel free to make some notes.
Lisa, did you tell them the general plot a little bit, or is that very fresh now?
It's very fresh. They don't know. They know that the topic does have strong forces of good and evil, and they are looking to read. And when I go through the text, we will show how we can understand it from what the text says. So I'm interested in them first getting their first impressions just from what they're reading. What questions do they have? What images come up?
I can imagine for not English-speaking people, this text includes some words what is not the normal use we have in our school English.
Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this. What I've put up now on the screen is it's a photograph of the actual set of sides, what we call sides in America in English. They're your side of the script or section of the script. And we here can see exactly how it's laid out and the information that the casting person has revealed in the manner in which they have sent you this particular script. Now, along with this script, you might have been given a description, what they call a breakdown, which is a description of the character, and that description goes to the casting person or is created by the casting person, and it is shared in all the locations where they're inviting actors to submit their photos and resumes for consideration to audition. So the description of Fulcrum might be an older white male police officer or detective. I guess he's actually a detective. Long time on the job on the police department. And Lil Rush is a young female rookie. So she's new in the department. She's a new young detective, and she is idealistic and true to the cause of protecting and serving the public. And so we would have this information, and as we read, we would read that description at the top, which is Fulcrum hears inconsolable wails of grief echo across the crime scene. Rush and Fulcrum look over and see Maeve, 39, Cedric, 16, Quincy, 13, Luther, 11, and Patrick, 9, approaching the police tape. The uniforms hold the family back. So this means, first of all, to read that, Fulcrum hears inconsolable wails of grief. So inconsolable, meaning you cannot give consolation. You cannot give enough sympathy or empathy to calm the wails, which are loud cries that wrench the heart, loud, you're unable to soothe or to calm the loud screams and cries of sorrow and grief. And they echo across the crime scene, and there would be an echo because this crime scene takes place in an urban area with high-rise buildings in a very poor section of the town, and the cries literally echo off the buildings. So Rush and Fulcrum see the family of, so Rush and Fulcrum look over and see Maeve, who is the mother, Cedric, the brother, Quincy, the brother, Luther, the brother, Patrick, the youngest brother, all approaching the police tape. And the uniforms mean the uniformed police officers hold the family back. The police officers create the perimeter and protect the perimeter of the scene. And what we understand then from the script is that there is a dead child of Maeve and a dead brother of these 4 younger brothers. So Fulcrum begins. Aw, crap, critters got kin. Go talk to him. So critters, what information, what is critters? Critters are little small things, insects or small animals. So we see that, aw crap, critters got kin, go talk to him. And then Rush says, I've never informed a family a loved one's been murdered. What do we know about the scene now? Fulcrum says, this is a perfect opportunity then, practice for the real thing. What images come from that? What does that mean? The real thing? Rush asks. A taxpayer's murder. Because this here ain't nothing but an NHI. What is an NHI? I ask as the reader. And Rush explains that to us. This is how the writing works. No humans involved. What does that mean? What does that mean that Fulcrum said that all her attention should be on preparing to do this sharing of bad news to the family for when a real human is involved? And then Fulcrum says, that's right, Lil. So don't sweat it, because I sure ain't. And she says, okay. So just fill yourself with images. Look at that whole thing. Make a note of any images. And if you feel like it, you can actually get up on your feet. So you can get up on your feet and begin to move through the space with what are the images there? What came for you? What images, what's an image of critters? What is kin? Kin is family. Kin means kinfolk or kind folk, the same kind of folk, meaning the family, right? And you notice the different languaging between Fulcrum and Rush. what do you experience there? Again, if you want to move that, if you start to see gestures that are coming in, if you can feel atmospheres that are coming in, you'd like to begin to play and get up and move that around, even draw images, if you like, on a separate piece of paper that you would be, you could do it on this piece, but if you walked into an office, you would not want to come in with your paper fully scattered with images. So have a second copy. And when I spoke of working with the text, I talked about the AAA, when you have a short amount of time like this, that for me, if I only have the shortest amount of time, I go for three things. One is atmospheres, is overall, and archetypes as a personal atmosphere, and the action that's happening. Okay, so you can start thinking about that. What is the atmosphere in the beginning? What is the atmosphere in the end? Where does it change? How does it change? If you have ideas, again, you can jot them down on your script or on your notes.
Lisa, is it possible to make this bigger? My eyes are not as good as the youth. Like
Yes.
a little bigger.
Well, are you able to download the?
Can I stop the screen share and okay?
You should be able to.
Yeah, you're right. I'll just stop the screen share.
Or you can if you have the document up on your thing, you can make your screen share smaller, and
Yep.
you can click on.
Got it. Thank you. I got it.
And was that helpful, Paul?
Yeah, I have it now.
Okay, great.
I just stopped screen share so I could read this side.
Okay.
Technology.
So what I'd like to do is to go ahead and invite anyone who wants to unmute and just share briefly any questions or images that are arising, and see what are you understanding. Someone want to say what they're understanding from reading this. What's the situation?
Hi, it's Susan. Thinking of atmospheres, of the overall atmosphere and then personal atmospheres. What my question is how the overall atmosphere and, the grief, rage, chaos, sharp angles, that's what's coming at me. Fulcrum's personal atmosphere, hot, sweaty, slow molasses, exhausted. And then rush would be air and fear. So my question is how does the overall atmosphere affect my personal atmosphere in the action of the scene?
Great. So the steps that I would take for that would be to rehearse multiple times for the overall atmosphere, and rehearse in a very the opposite of that, an opposite atmosphere of that, like a very calm kind of day in the park where lots of people are out playing. So it's similar in that there's a lot of people, but it's completely different in its quality. And then go back to rehearsing one more time with the overall atmosphere. So by that time, your sense of what the atmosphere is inspiring you with should be strong enoughly identified by your creative individuality. And then I would put on the personal atmosphere of the character, and put that work just with that, and your talent will automatically begin to merge the two. So in that practicing, of course, you want to find out how does that atmosphere change, and separately, you would have the shift in the, you could say, emotional atmosphere, or what Michael Chekhov calls mood, when he makes a distinction between a personal atmosphere and the temporary emotional states that someone is in. So we have that. And in the personal atmosphere, it will be important to make sure that the archetype is in there. And that's the old codger, as one of the things we say here, is the old white bigot. And we have the young hero, but she again is an officer, she's a detective. So she has that, both of them have that sense of police style authority. They have that that essential archetype. And then how is that how does that mood or emotional atmosphere transform for each of the characters, the character you're choosing? So that's a great question. Thank you, Susan. Who else has anyone want to unmute? Joerg, do you want to jump in? There you are.
Yeah, here I am. Yes. You gave just 3 tasks, so then we should go through the 3 tasks. And then there's a question, how does the participants of the session understand these terms, atmosphere, general atmosphere. So atmosphere of the situation, how is the situation? I would like that you have a moment, you can do it by reading the scene again, or just by walking a little bit, or thinking, imagining. That's the most important point. Imagine the scene. And I would like one time try to see the full scene from outside in a way. So you see both characters. And take a moment just to imagine, where are they standing? How are they standing? How is he standing? How is she standing? Where are they looking? In which direction? How can you see that? Can you see their faces? Just try to go with your mind a moment to that situation.
You can also post things in the chat if you wish. Some thoughts in the chat if you wish.
So let's say, because of the time now, one would even that one would repeat later, or when you have it for your preparation, more time. If you don't have, then take what you get. You have seen this situation, and then you see in that imagination, you see also, you sense the atmosphere, the general quality of the tense, the quality of the light, the quality of everything in this situation in your imagination. And this atmosphere you may create around yourself. You walk, maybe, or you stand, and normally I would say, okay, you imagine first in front of you this atmosphere, and then you across the threshold into that space, but you can also try, and also working, that you think, okay, this what I have imagined is just around me. This atmosphere of this situation. And then when working this atmosphere, of course, is the double process that you have first to imagine what the atmosphere is around you. And here we have the image of the situation. What is around you? And then the second part is that you let influence yourself. Let influence yourself by that what is around you in this imagination, in the atmosphere. And then you can try a first trying out to read silently with your eyes, or speak silently with your eyes, the other part. So man takes a man and woman takes a woman. But you speak out in this atmosphere the words of your character in this way. You speak the words for the character. You are not in character. Just take from the atmosphere. How could I imagine these words would sound under this atmosphere? And you can do it in your room, and you can speak the lines for your character. And I would like to say something. It's very bad to say negative tasks. So I try to express it positive. Avoid to immediately act it. Avoid to make it emotional or whatever you think. Just try that the atmosphere can influence your speech. Try out.
Well, this is the perfect opportunity then. Practice for the real thing. Yeah, a taxpayer's murder. Because this here ain't nothing but an NHI. Yeah, that's right, Lil. Because don't sweat it, because I sure ain't.
Okay. I hope that was more or less understandable. Reading the opposite part, not your part, and speaking out your part so that you get a sense how this general atmosphere can influence the speech. Normally, we would repeat that 3 times, that you can speak it 3 times, that you repeat that sensation. Now you may look back for a moment and try to sense how was it? Has this general atmosphere of the situation around you, did it had an influence to the speech when you spoke it for the character? My suggestion is in such a beginning steps, just not as character, just speak it for, so that you have the open relationship. She is saying, he is saying, but how does this atmosphere influence the speech? Okay. Then step out of that. What is with the general atmosphere? Say, I have something. There's something there. I know it. And you go back to your imagination of the situation, of the scene. And you look to that couple, the both people here, and try to see them in your imagination. You can, I can imagine that you can do that. You can move the perspective. You can, like a moving eye, you can move around them, or you can find a position that you can see them, and you try to imagine then the dialogue between them one time more. Just you can hold your image in your mind, and if you would need to look to the text, and you can also look to the text. It is not that you see it as a fulfilled film, not that you see it as a very realistic picture. You just, in this very open situation now, you look at them and you look, what is he saying in the first, okay, is that you look to the text and then you imagine how he is saying it. Try to see him. How is he gesturing it? With a focus to that what they are observing. Look at them. What is his radiation? And for the women, what is her radiation? How is she speaking? You look to the dialogue. Can you sense any reaction in your imagination? A gesture, a moving head. Coming closer or going more away from each other. And I think you are through now. You could do that. Coming to the end with the imagination. Then, even when you look to that image of both, but speak out only your character. The other you can read. You look and you listen to it. You try very clearly to listen, and as if you would, how to say, you see how she is speaking, and you listen it in your imaginary ear, and then you speak it out again, as she had spoken it, as you have heard it when you have observed them there. And so for him and so for her, going through the text. So you hear it first, and then you speak it out.
Real thing.
You speak out your character. Yeah, okay. So it's a funny thing, of course. You imagine it and you listen how they speak, and then you repeat it, and it's the same, you speak it for them. Now in a different, out of a different perspective. You have now more their habits involved, how they are in relationship to each other. And out of this observation, and also out of that listening, and also out of that voice, yeah, then you should come to that as a thing. I overjumped now the archetype, and maybe Lisa will after that go to the archetype back. I would say out of that you see, look again to them both, and you see their gestures, their movements, and the actions. First, look at it one time more, and you listen also to the speech, and you can always look to the text, that you know what they are talking about, and you have in your observation of the imagination, you have the actions. Even just a standing position is an action in this way, of course. You don't need to think that they have to move very much, but try to imagine. And maybe even through that, the full image, the image of the situation, the image of the both, the image of your character is always a bit transforming. That's wonderful.
I would also suggest that you could imagine the moment before and the moment after Fulcrum and Rush, for example, arriving in their detective vehicle, coming through the crowd, and Rush afterwards going over to share the news with the family, and what is Fulcrum doing during that time to perhaps see the full atmosphere, because on the set that's very well what might happen. The scene might actually begin from that point and go all the way to that point.
Yeah. Okay, I think you have imagined it. And maybe I'm too slowly with my steps here. Of course, the next step is then out of the imagination. You just do that things. Try to do it for the character, not as. That is that you lead your movements for the character. You have seen the character. You have an image now, more or less clear. And how is the movement when you take the movements of this character to your body? It's an exploration. It is a testing, a trying out. You see it and you find it. So that's this, how this body in your imagination is moving, and how can you give your body these habits or this imagination you had. It's also a little bit tricky because you have to halt or to look for a moment of this scene, or you see the full scene and you can hold it in your mind as a pure imagination, and then you go through it and you try it out to move your arm, your finger, your head for the character, not as. So maybe you can try that now.
Also, if anyone has their camera off but would like to turn it on so we can see how you're working, watch you a little bit, feel free to do that.
Yeah, I have to look even to this movement that I can see if I should continue or not. So you don't need to overdo that. It's all the trying out. So we have collected some impressions, these, and with these first impressions, maybe Lisa, you go to that point with the archetypes. That's very good that we can involve that, what you can give with that archetype. So we have now some general atmosphere. We have a speaking of the person, try it out, and we have some movements, some gestures of the people. And now we involve also the archetype. And before you start, Lisa, I wanted to say that how the order is now, this is later on your free decision. It is not that this order has to be one order fits for all situations. It's just as we tried to lead now for that situation. Okay, Lisa?
Yes. Okay. So when we look at the concept of the archetype, we can see that the archetype is very clear. Remembering that we're in an audition, we're applying for the job of a police officer, in this case, a detective. So we have a merging of two archetypes: the detective, who searches for clues, and we have the police officer who serves and protects. And we have a difference in the thinking, feeling, and willing forces, but we share a common sense of authority. So this officer of the peace must have the authority of the police. And then, because this is a police detective, we need to have the authority of the police who is looking and searching for clues. So what kind of energy is that? So again, we can go to the imagination, and we love to understand that one can actually imagine through your ideal artistic center, and that can be a very different process than imagining out of your thinking forces alone. So let's just pretend that we can actually feel, see, sense, or hear, because the way you operate could be any of those. The pure archetype. What is the pure archetype of the protector? The protector. And just feel that, imagine that, see that. And because we've been doing meditative, imaginative work, we'll speed this up a little bit for time's sake, and invite you to really literally get up on your feet now, and outside of the emotional content, really separate from the atmosphere, imagine you can put that body on of the protector. And so, for whether you're male or female playing Rush or Fulcrum, this pure archetype is not colored with any of the personal qualities yet of sympathy or antipathy, of good and evil yet. It's the pure protector. And try your physical action sequence with that, allowing the image of the protector to guide you through that. And we'll just take about 60 seconds to go ahead and move through that. Trust it, trust that you can do it at that speed. If you're not feeling any of the energy, go ahead and exaggerate it, unveil it, as we say. Show it more, even act it badly, even act it badly. Like overact, I'm a cop, I'm a police officer, I'm a protector. Just to help really discover the more specific, more aggressive expressions of it. You can always soften them, veil them later. Just really find what that is.
Family love has been murdered before. Real thing. No humans involved. Okay. Never informed a family of loved ones been murdered before. Never informed a family of loved ones been murdered before. Real thing. No humans involved. No humans involved. Okay. Okay. I never informed a family a loved one's been murdered before. The real thing. No humans involved. Okay. Okay! Never informed a family a loved one's been murdered before. The real thing. No humans involved. Okay.
Okay, and with that, now let's look to the detective. The detective. So let's go ahead and, if you need to, peel off that and or allow and add to find, to seek what is essence. And try that. Imagine, again, from the artistic center, seeing that detectiveness. What does that mean? How does it express itself? What does it fill the air with around you? What air, an air of detectiveness that you carry with you. And allow yourself, when you're ready, to go through the sequence again about 1 minute. Again, you can exaggerate it if you need to. Very nice. Very nice. And now you would go back and you would start to put that together, the action with the atmospheres, with the other elements of the characterization. So the other qualities that Fulcrum has, and the other qualities that Rush has, and try to assemble all of those. They will, you really want to trust your ideal artistic center, your creative higher spirit, your individuality will merge them or let them morph together. And then I would again pick an opposite situation, an opposite archetype, maybe the vulnerable victim archetype, and try the whole thing through with the vulnerable victim. It's very polar from that, and just so you can really sense the difference that the archetype, the essence of the archetype, the way that it influences what your what your artistic nature is expressing. Once you have really worked with the atmospheres and a polar atmosphere that you're sure is wrong, and with the archetypes and the archetypes you're sure are wrong, the opposites that would not work. When you do that, you create a very multi-dimensional field because some subtleties and nuances come in. And you may discover in what way is Fulcrum a victim, and in what way is Rush a victim. And you may actually find some truth there, so that when you put on the actual character and you understand, you can tell, at least for me anyway, is these are the forces of good and evil. This is the force of prejudice versus universal acceptance. And the tension between these two energies, when we're able to find the polarity of the characters that represent these archetypes in the storytelling. Remember, I talked about 4 big overbearing, overarching types. They are the hero and the villain, the victim and the bystander. And essentially here we have, potentially here, we have a hero and a villain together. So we could suspect that the story is going to unfold where Rush is going to come into her own power and eventually be able to take action there. So these are ideas of how it could be. And you want to allow yourself to play those out. And it also, you would, to whatever extent possible when preparing this script, want to try to understand what page this is on in terms of the story. So if you didn't have access, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the share here for a moment. If you did not have access to the entire story, you would want to try to read any other audition materials for any other characters. And this would might start to tell you a great deal of information. If this piece is from a short film, only 10 pages long, and it takes place on page 8, that's a very different thing than if it takes place on page 8 of a 108-page film script. So we really want to understand the form and where the part fits in the whole, so that we understand the critical elements that the story needs to tell here. That NHI, no humans involved, NHI, is might be considered that turning point in the script, where it's absolutely clear the depth of the point of view of Fulcrum and of Rush's newness to this entire world there. So with that, Joerg, would you like to share a next step for you from your perspective?
I'm looking a little bit to our time. So maybe we are not very clear how much time it takes, what we wanted to do, because we are rushing even now with the other steps a bit. I don't know yet if it is so helpful if we go to another step, or if we should invite these nice, wonderful people to work a little bit with the script until the next Monday. Sorry for that. It just came to me, and then we could continue that even with that same script. Or you can try out something with it, and you can come even in the beginning with your questions, how to relate to such things. I don't know, these are, sorry that
I agree with you. Absolutely, Joerg. I agree with you 100%. So what I'm curious about is I'd love to hear from some of you if you will unmute and share with us or show us your give us a thumbs up, tell us or enter in the chat. Yes, let's I'd love to have more time to work on this, and then if we do that, then next week maybe we can actually do a couple of readings. We could have some couples read, some pairs read opposite each other, a fulcrum and a rush. We could have we could try a version where one person is the casting person and not reading, dynamically. So we could play with that if we have some interest from our participants. So is this something you guys would be interested in doing? Give me a waves up, a thumbs up, give me something in the chat. Okay, so I am seeing a lot of thumbs up. Very good. I see Michaela and yes, Kirill. So, yep, Joanna, thank you. Yeah.
Igor, what is with you? You were listening, yeah?
Uh-huh, Igor.
Igor was listening only, I think.
Yeah. Great.
Okay. Yeah, I think it would be the best. Sorry. Otherwise, and then in 5 minutes to finish something, that's also, try out something, get your own inspiration. It's also nice.
So is there anyone who'd like to share anything about your experience? If you would go ahead and unmute yourselves. If you're on the phone or something, *6 will unmute you. So we have that. Anyone? Joanna? Joanne?
Hi. Yeah, no, this was very great. I think sometimes you forget about all of the nuances and layers. And I feel it's interesting for me because, the words, every single word gives you so many clues. So just, looking at Rush, just the fact that the very first line is, I never. So right away that the word never gave me so much information about the scene, about her, about the fact that this is her first time. And the ideas of working with opposites, of, reaching for this older detective to guide her, and almost being also a sense of betrayal. The images that I was getting was she was like a baby bird being kicked out of a nest, right? And told to fly, and having to learn it very, very quickly. So a lot of images, and I filled 3 pages worth of information on 3 lines. So that was awesome.
Susan, I just, what I heard today fresh was revolutionary. Rehearse the opposites. Rehearse the opposite atmospheres, rehearse opposite archetypes. It not only will show me what might be wrong, but it actually will give me nuances of behavior.
And I want to remind everyone to really consider, well, what value it would give to show what might be happening in your imagination before the scene, what visually and physically is happening before the dialogue begins, and what happens afterwards, and how does that affect the, what comes in the middle.
Yeah, just in reference to the short turnaround on a lot of these auditions, it's very helpful to remind yourself not to fall into that trap of quick create the character. And I think what everyone said about this nuancing and finding these different archetypes and the different atmospheres, and then their opposite, kind of really start to flesh something out without you getting trapped into this kind of two-dimensional idea of the character that on first reading seems to be there in the page.
I found it very difficult to move that fast because I like to live in the atmosphere a long time before I ever move on to the next thing, because it needs to be in me. And so it was not, nothing really got inside of me too much. So I went on to the next thing and I didn't have the other thing already kind of within me. So it was so fast, discovered tons of things, but I just processed, obviously, that was very quick. So good, Joerg, for stopping us, because I was like, "What?" That's just me.
Well, it's good. And you know what? It is also fun to sometimes work really fast and just pretend that you actually got it. So, and I offer that very seriously, because your artistic creative self works in flashes. And those flashes, it's in a sense, it's related to what Chekhov talks about, active waiting, the active gaze, to wait actively. And the moment we see, hear, feel, or sense, that moment happens in a flash. So sometimes you really don't have enough time. Like I go into an audition and I read the part of the nurse, and the casting director says, Lisa, would you take a look at the teacher? Do you think you could take a look at the teacher? And sends me out into the waiting room, and 15 minutes later brings me in to read for the teacher, a scene I've never read before, a part of the story I don't know about, a whole character in that regard. And I have to, in effect, pretend that I know that. And by the way, one of the reasons why it's great to read all the material, like if you walk into a waiting room, you see other people's materials, to read them, because the moment you read them, you start building more and more images about the feeling of the whole. And then if you are asked to go out and pull out one of those, it actually has been already working for you in your imagination. So play with that, trust that, because just as a practicing process, what could I achieve if I did have to move quickly, like only had 15 minutes literally to do that? And there are environments where they have what they call paid casting showcases, and they hand everybody scripts in pairs, and you go off and you have 10 minutes or 15 minutes to work with a scene partner, and then you come back and you show it to the casting person. And this happens a lot in professional areas in the United States. I don't know if that's happening in other countries, but you literally pay to audition, and you literally only have 15 minutes with the script and working with a scene partner. So there's practicing doing things quickly and finding a feeling of beauty about time, because it's just a form. And allowing that inspiration can happen in a flash. So if you have the time, you take all the time. But if you don't have the time, rather than feeling unfriendly to it, make friends with the amount of time that you have, and literally pretend that time is longer there. That's my suggestion with that. Okay, everybody, I want to thank you all so much for joining us. Joerg?
Thank you very much, everybody. And I'm looking forward to see you next week. And then we can continue and add something wonderful more.
And there's, Joerg, there's a question in the chat which says, are the Sunday sessions available to watch at a later date?
They are recorded and they will be on the Michael Chekhov International Academy YouTube channel, published, and even in the Russian channel, but I don't know how it is. I think it's a Chekhov Center channel on YouTube too.
And there is on YouTube, Lisa Dalton's YouTube channel, and there are playlists that have all the videos that Joerg and I have done, and there are videos of other Chekhov on your feet exercises that and discussions that I've recorded with Will Kilroy, our NMCA co-founder. And so in addition to, and I remind you to please join the International Michael Chekhov Association Facebook page, and you'll be able to find more information and share it. Please share it, spread the wealth. So I have posted in the chat the Zoom for, in about 40 minutes, we're gonna come onto that. It's a new Zoom meeting number where we're gonna come back and we're going to interview Gail Cronauer about her role in The Vast of Night. So you're all invited to join us for that. And if you have friends who were not able to join us today and would like to come next week and you have the text, feel free to share it with them. Hopefully you all have either my email or Joerg's email or WhatsApp, and you can, I'll post my email in the chat, and you can also email us if you need that text.
Thank you very much.